Hey, you guys, welcome to our podcast today, our little YouTube thing. Today I'm talking to Ted McLyman, who supports women in ways to help life feel more steady and manageable. So, Ted, I'm so glad you can be with us today. Guys, Ted is on his fourth career. I'm going to let him fill you in on the rest of that. But I will introduce him to you as a graduated um, from financial advising. So he's moved on from that, gone up a level, and I'm going to let him go ahead and tell us. So, Ted,
Well,
I'm so glad you can spend some time with us today.
yeah, Sally, I truly appreciate it. And let me explain the fourth career thing.
Please
Um,
do.
I am full of energy and I get bored really easy, and I would drive my wife nuts if I stayed in the house and did nothing. So here we go. I grew up in the Northeast where it's cold and miserable. In other words, what it's like now in the middle of the country, it was like there for months. Graduated from Colgate University, wanted to chase some sunshine, took a commission in the United States Marine Corps to get some money for graduate school, see the world. And the Marine Corps had the foresight to send me to Hawaii. I
Mhm.
was introduced to primary colors, sunglasses, and sunscreen, which was amazing. But more importantly, it was the first time I'd ever been any place where I really saw money being so important and used irresponsibly, not only my Marines, but myself. And I start taking notice because it was causing domestic problems, performance problems, re-enlistment, security goes on and on and on. Well, I started working with my Marines, and I found at that time it was all reactive, not proactive. We would never tell you what to do, but we told you when you did it wrong, and we would discipline. And that was a problem, and it never seemed to work. Well, to make a long story short, I thought I was going to get out of the Marine Corps, but I found out I was an indentured servant. I had a regular commission. So myself, my new wife, and a young child took orders to Hawaii. I'm sorry, not to Hawaii, from Hawaii to Japan. And we lived on the economy. And there I also witnessed not only Americans doing crazy things in the Japanese economy with money, but the Japanese behaving exactly the same way. They
Mm.
also make crazy money choices. To make a
Mm.
long story short, came back to the States, finished my first graduate degree at Pepperdine, and was assigned to the Naval Academy to teach economics. Now, I was classically trained at Colgate in finance and I get it. So that's the thing. But here's something that was really amazing. I was teaching what I thought traditional, correct financial behavior, financial literacy, and economics. And here's what we discovered. My
Mm.
mids were acing it in the classroom and failing in life. In other words, what we discovered was the theory was not transferring over. We gave them no practical skills, and they were making crazy decisions, particularly midshipmen, because they came out with no college debt. They had good career opportunities, but they were crammed about 4 years into spending into about 6 months and got into a lot of trouble.
Wow.
That was an issue.
Yeah.
And I know we don't do that, and probably none of our kids have done that. And we probably know nobody that's ever done anything like that. But it was the first time it really hit me that traditional finance and planning just wasn't working. It assumed we were rational with money. It assumed that we'd given enough information, we'd do it right. But I found not only my personal experience, but as a leader, as a commander, in all my other experience, it just wasn't true. And what solidified it, did some other Marine Corps things, picked up another master's degree, but ended up as an aide to the Secretary of the Navy for financial management. And Washington, D.C. is an amazing place. You know, you live near it. I lived in the area for a long time myself. But I started working with the political class. And to make a long story short, they just don't understand money. I know that's hard to believe, but they really don't. And
No.
I saw all kinds of crazy behavior that was not driven by anything other than emotion. And I got a
Wow.
little confused, a little disenchanted, but I went with the flow. And then when I retired, I decided I wanted to become a financial advisor. Uh, Became licensed, took opportunities with two national firms, and did very, very well. I thought I was there. I thought it was a good deal. Working, met some great people, was making good money. But here's something I discovered after a little while. they really don't care about us. Unless you
Mhm.
have two commas in your net worth, the average person is nothing more than somebody to sell stuff to. And
Yeah.
I became very frustrated that I was being graded and led by how much I sold, not how much I helped people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe that a lot of the women that are hearing this, a lot of the people that are hearing this, men and women, are disillusioned with what we have been sold into. And
Yep.
so now we're kind of stuck in this environment with it feels like no options to get out because it's what we were told to do, right? So we're kind of following along like the sheep.
Yeah, Sally,
Um,
you've identified the entire paradox we're working with. Been told for years you've got to be good with money.
yeah.
They just said you got to be good with money. In most cases, they never teach you how to do it. You don't get it in school. It's not a requirement. And it's kind of go as you go and learn as you go and hope you recover from your mistakes.
Mhm.
But the reality is most people don't. And as an advisor, I ended up working with, unfortunately, a lot of women where they were trying to work through some very, very difficult circumstances, a divorce, a bad relationship, uh, an estate plan type situation. And you hit it right on the head, Sally. One of the problems that really frustrated me, the traditional financial industry is primarily male dominated.
Yeah.
It is, well, I'm not going to get into what you're all thinking right now, but you're right. Okay. I'm not even going to bring that up, but you're correct. But the reality is that most women, or a lot of women, are going to be alone or on their own for about a third of their life. And at that time, not only is it traumatic, but you're probably not prepared. You're working with a plan or a program that was put together by somebody else, probably over a number of years with a relationship between your partner, spouse, or whoever, and some financial person.
Mhm.
And you may or may not have even known what was going on. That is a problem.
Yeah. And even when you know what's going on, it does seem like it's out. Well, for me personally, it feels like it's out of my hands
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because, oh, yes, and they're doing this shell game thing. And it's like,
Yeah, yeah. And it's all magic. That's the way I look at it
yeah.
because the industry, and I'll just leave it at this, is more concerned about selling products and services than helping people.
Hmm.
Well, my
Hmm.
frustration came to a head. I resigned for these two firms, and I'd already gone into management, and I had a pretty big district. And I started my own firm called Apex Behavioral Financial Solutions. And we started to put into practice what I learned after a couple of years that my job was to manage behavior, not money.
Interesting. So that's how you focus. Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, and because it was obvious to me that people were coming in, and it should be a lot more relationship based than, buying coffee at Starbucks. I mean, really. And so I started designing some really, really exciting different approaches that would work on relationships and not goal setting, but building a program that you could live with.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that in a little bit more depth. But I wrote my first book, Money Makes Me Crazy, for my clients back a few years ago. And it was to help them to get through. We were going through a bit of an economic dip at the time. And I said,
Mhm.
if you just follow the advice in the book, you'll be okay. And they all were.
Wow.
Well,
Money makes me crazy. Okay, I'm
yep, that
repeating
was my
that,
first
guys. I'll
book.
put it in the link.
That was my first book. I'm not even sure that's available in print, but I've got a new one that we'll talk about in a minute. But
Okay.
that became the foundation for a lot of other things I was doing. That book morphed into three other books. I co-authored a book with J. Alexander Martin, one of the founders of the Fubu Corporation. His partner was Damon John of Shark Tank because they were doing some really crazy things with money. Jay burnt
Mm.
through about $9 million, $8 or $9 million in about 5 or 10 years and didn't know why. He was spending against his natural behavior and he hated it.
Huh.
Okay, now let's fast forward to a year ago. A year
Yeah.
ago, the weather was about the same. I was bored. I am now I'm a partner of another firm called Dream Smart Behavioral Solutions, a behavioral group, and we're building that. But I'm doing that all remotely. So I decided to write another book. And this one is one that I really want your listeners to focus on. I found that a lot of people that should read financial books don't or won't. And it's unfortunate. And the problem is not you, it's us who write books.
Mm.
So I wrote a book. It's only about 130 pages. I call it an airplane book. It's really easy. It's written like a blog. It's actually got some pictures, but it doesn't talk about money. I don't talk about products. I don't talk about the market. I don't talk about what you should own and own and distribution and all that. What I talk about is the piece that is missing in traditional financial planning.
Oh, and what is
And
that?
from what I can tell, I'm the only one person talking about it. But let me go through it very quickly.
Yes,
We
please
just got
do.
a couple of minutes. There are three things that conspire against us when we spend money. First, it's our biology. We are hardwired to stay alive, chase opportunities, and pass on our genes. We're not good at taxes. We don't like to make change or read the little print on credit card statements. It's just who we are. Money is not a default activity for most humans. Some are, but the ones it is, they go into banking and finance. The rest of us have to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
Number two, it's our belief set. Our beliefs are established usually by our family group between age 3 and 12, and it our beliefs with money, how money works, just basic economic concepts. It also establishes our values, and our peer group by middle school really sets the tone. And then from there on, we live with the beliefs, the values, and the peer pressure for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
The
Wow.
dominant driver is culture. We buy things from places we didn't know existed a few years ago that we have to have, and it's available through Temu or Amazon or something like that, and it shows up overnight. Isn't that great?
Mm. Yes and no, right?
Right, right. And then the last thing is technology. Technology is a game changer. It just means we can spend faster, quicker on things we don't need and do stupid things
Oh, yeah.
in different
Faster and
areas
quicker.
instantaneously, right? Well, I had to come up with a model that I could work with my clients, and I'm going to go through it just very, very quickly
Oh,
because there are
please.
three things that are at the front of the model that are so different and you need to get your head around.
Okay.
Number one, if you talk to a financial advisor, they usually start with goals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, goals are important. Everybody's got them, but the problem with goals, they're usually about stuff, not behavior, not
Mm-hmm.
values. So what I started is says first thing you have to do is determine your money values. Money values is nothing more than the most important things in life to you that cost money. Now you have goals to achieve those values, and your values will drive your goals. But often I found people's current goals are not aligned with their values. Let me explain.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to, when you get through with this thing, break out a bank statement, break out your calendar. Think for a minute what's most important to you about money. Now, I explain all this in the book. Then look at your calendar, look at your checkbook, and if you're eating out every night and you're spending a lot of money, but you say, I want to have a great retirement program, probably something's misaligned because I can show you how to eat out every night, or I can show you how to have a great retirement, but probably not to do both. So you have to codify your values. And values are different between different people. And the thing about values is you don't judge because they're non-conscious, they're emotional, they're what drive you, they make you who you are. Values are the foundation. And no planner I know talks about values. It's always goals. Next thing is money temperament. Money temperament is a term I coined, and think of it as your fingerprint or your personality with money. It's unique to you. Now think about this for a second. We accept having coaches and assistants and nudges from almost every other part of our life except money. You can have a wealth coach. You can have a fitness coach. You can have a ski coach. You can have a nutrition coach. You can have a wellness coach. You can have a fill it in. And we're very comfortable as a society to have other people come in all the time to help us get better at what we're doing, except for money. And that's unfortunate because on the money side, and I found this as an advisor, we treat everybody the same way. We assume everybody's rational. We assume that if we give you enough information, you'll pick the product and service that's appropriate to achieve the goal. Whether or not it's based on your values and your money temperament is irrelevant.
Mm,
That's why when I was an advisor, I started watching all these people come in with beautiful financial plans that cost a lot of money, but they weren't in alignment with their temperament, so they were never executed. Temperament is something I get into in depth. We have some instruments to make it work, and I've also got a couple of simple exercises in the book to help you determine what that is. The next
yeah.
piece is how do you process information? In education, we call that learning modality. Now, here again, we accept learning modality in every piece of education. We accept learning modality in critical activities like driving and whatever. And it just means, do you process information visually, auditory, or tactily?
Yeah.
We disregard that in money. We just
Mm,
say everybody's the same. You get the same stuff. That's why when you're buying a new car, you go through the sales cycle. It's all emotional and fun with the smell and the everything is about a new car. But you go to sign the paperwork, it's a completely different
mm,
environment. You have to move from I call it your feeling brain to your thinking brain in an instant. And if you're not able to make that switch, that's how you end up with a $10,000 navigation system you don't need.
yeah.
That's an emotional buy. So those three things, values, temperament, and learning style are critical for financial success, but we don't even address it.
That's
Then very
so
simply, ooh, I'm
fascinating.
sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm saying that the next step is once you understand that, then you develop your strategy. The key with your strategy, it should be value driven, behavioral based, and given to you or presented in a way you can best understand it and use it. Then you go out and find the licensed person to get the stuff.
Mm,
That's, I am basically talking about the front end that is missing that should be part of the entire process
yeah.
because you do this non-consciously. You do this intuitively all the time. So as we're closing up here, if I've said anything that piques your interest, go to my website, tedmcclyman.com. Everything you need to know about me is there. There's a book, there's a free guide, and a few things like that.
Yeah.
But here's a question I want to ask you. If you've ever been to the store to pick up milk and bread, jump out of the car, run in, but you grab a cart. You always go right because we're in the United States. You go by the deli, the florist, all the
Yeah.
way through the store, meandering on a scavenger hunt, filling your cart as you go. You find the milk and bread, drop in your cart, go out, spend a small fortune, get home and go, what happened? We've all done that because we're human. It's not a problem with a small trip to the store, but it's a significant problem when you're buying a house, making significant financial decisions, everything from a college education from your children and grandchildren to retirement, et cetera, et cetera. And we
Yeah.
don't teach what I'm talking about. I am trying to change it, and I want people to join in.
I think that is fabulous. And may I ask, I wonder if there is one thing that like we could you besides of course getting your books and going to your website and checking out everything that you offer. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a resource that you've created that, I'll make sure everybody gets. But what's one thing that you would put on the top of the list for my listeners who are going, oh my gosh, you're talking to me?
Right, right.
Um, what's the first step that they would take without calling you,
Yep.
to get on the right path?
No, I think honestly, sitting down and taking a look at the statement in the calendar and have a reality check. Look for a pattern. Look for the pattern in how you're spending your time and how you're spending your money because non-consciously that is your value set and that is what's most important to you. And if that's not aligned, you need to make an adjustment. And it is what you're doing, but you still can't afford it. You still have to make an adjustment. But I want to give you a really simple tip.
Okay.
Take a picture of my book or a picture of me on this video. Save it on your phone. Before you go into a store, you flash that sucker up. You don't know who I am and where I came from, but I guarantee you I'll save you a fortune.
Right. Just a reminder. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You just mentioned something that reminded me of what I've heard somewhere else. And it's like, I might not know anything about you, but you can tell me what you think you want and give me your calendar, and I'll tell you what you really, really value, right? And that's
Yep.
what you're telling us.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
let's have a hard look at exactly what we want out of life,
Yep.
and then figure out a financially viable way to reach that goal that is the truth of what you really want, not what you think you should want, or your mom or dad said this is what you want, or do you know that kind of thing? That's what I kind of hear you saying. And so you have a
Absolutely.
different way to look at this, which is to me, a kinder, gentler way, a little softer and not so overwhelming. Um, that my brain would just shut down looking at the paperwork, right?
Yeah, and here's the
I'm a slow processor. I'm a kinesthetic learner,
yeah.
and it's always been overwhelming. So, Ted, this has been fabulous. I know this is going to reach the people that are going to want to know more. So, I'm going to put every link in the book. I mean, every link that is yours in there. And I'm just going to say out loud that your website is tedmclyman.com, TEDMCLYMAN.com. Scrounge through there. He's got a bunch of stuff that's really helpful. And he's got us thinking maybe a little differently today. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And hopefully, folks, um, you're watching this, and I hope you like this conversation. If you like this, subscribe and share and like it and tell your friends, because we want to be able to have other people hear this valuable information like Ted shared in these little snippets of time that can help you grow and become the person that has ease and calm throughout your life. So thanks again. And thank you, Ted, very, very much.
Thank you. It's been a privilege.